Hello, I'm Julie Swenson, Managing Director of Forward Theater Company in Madison, Wisconsin.
I'm Mike Fisher, Milwaukee-based theater writer and dramaturg.
I'm Jen Uphoff-Gray, founder and artistic director of Forward Theater Company. And this is Theater Forward, a twice-monthly conversation about theater from a local, regional, and national perspective. From Madison to Manhattan, we're excited to share insight into our own company while exploring issues surrounding theater in the Midwest and around the country. Welcome to episode 55 of Theater Forward.
You nickels. All right.
So this episode, we are going to talk about our recent announcement of our lucky 13th season coming up for 2021-2022 and what went into selecting it. And I thought I would just start real quickly with the tagline for this upcoming season, which is Nevertheless, which was proposed by the marketing company that we work with, the design company, and just feels so right for us and our industry and our audience as I will even knock wood, you'll hear me as we record this, as we look at what we assume will be the coming out of COVID year for us and for our industry. Many things are moving in a promising direction. Here in Wisconsin, vaccination rates are really impressive. And we are feeling good about being back to live in-person performance in this upcoming season. But I feel like before we talk about the particular plays, we just kind of need to acknowledge the ways in which planning for this season were different from considerations that we had in past years. And also in many ways the same. I mean, the same fundamental goals of picking good plays that would be new and exciting for our audience, that would provoke great conversation, that would provide inspiring art, that would employ lots and lots of artists in our state, that provide a balanced season of different tones and different topics. Like all of that, totally the same.
Yep.
But we were also thinking things about how many out-of-towners might we be in a position to house this year. Do we need to be prepared for part or all of the season to have capacity restrictions in our theater? Making sure we had the right to film all of our productions so that we could offer at-home viewing to folks who might be feeling squeamish about subscribing, just with there still being some unknowns out there. What are some other ones, Julie or Mike? Am I forgetting other big considerations that went in?
It was interesting at our advisory company meetings, the body that helps to choose this season. There were certainly a faction of that group that just wanted easy listening, and nothing too heavy. And while that's a valid concern or a valid wish, it's not necessarily what we do at Forward, and not everything is heavy, but we had to balance that with even the lighter pieces have some meat to them. And so we couldn't go way to the extreme of plays that we don't pick in a normal season.
Right. Yeah. Balancing that, we understand and recognize people's psychic need for healing and hope at this moment in time, while also not wanting to be like, well, and now we're going to have a season of fluff, because it's just not what we do. And honestly, fluff has its place. I like a good piece of fluff, and I will go see it at other companies, but that's just not what we do at Forward. We do a mix of comedies and dramas, and the dramas usually have some comedy in them, and the comedies usually have some meat to them. But that's kind of our sweet spot. And so we didn't want to suddenly start programming things that have nothing to do with who we are.
Right.
All made more complicated by what we've referred to on this podcast many times as the second pandemic that we're going through, and that was it has been going on forever, but has been exacerbated and sort of underscored by the horrific violence with Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, and now the most recent shootings in Minneapolis and Knoxville. I think Chris Jones, it'll be a few weeks old by the time this podcast drops, had a lovely piece in the Tribune a couple days ago And he talked about this struggle to balance exactly what the two of you have been talking about. We need to be recognizing that some people just want to laugh right now. It has been a long, hard year, and that there are others. And I know you've heard me on this podcast more in this camp where like, boom, 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 beat you over the head right now with what's going on because you feel the urgency of the moment, which we all do. And what Chris said, and it's something I really want to try and practice in my own thinking about the craft, is absolutely right. He said there are going to be people who will have reasonable disagreements about what kinds of shows should be done. And that we need to have enough grace and love for each other to recognize that there are room for multiple points of view on this issue. And I say that not just in terms of our season, about which I am intensely proud, but in terms of all the companies that have started and will be in the weeks ahead announcing. And I think whether you like their particular selections or not, cut them some slack. This has been a really, really hard year in terms of choosing plays. And of course, I'll think we've done better than anybody else. But it's been hard, folks, and we're all doing our best out there to get it right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I want to jump in, and the way we'll do this is I'll talk about one of the plays we've chosen and sort of just the bare outlines of it, and then we can just chat a little bit about what it was that caused us to put this in this season. So we're going to be opening our season in September 2021, a mere 5 months from now. Wow, with a almost never produced gem of a play by the legendary Adrienne Kennedy, actually co-written with her son Adam Kennedy, called "Mom, How Did You Meet the Beatles?" And it is a two-hander. It's one of those two-handers that you could make an argument is kind of a one-person show, but it is an autobiographical play that Adrienne and Adam Kennedy wrote together, in which the son is interviewing his mother about her experiences as a young, exciting, emerging Black playwright in the 60s, American who traveled not on a whim, but on a hope and a prayer over to London and spent some time in London in the swinging 60s and that exciting environment. And she was there primarily because she was hooked up with John Lennon to take some of his what he called nonsense writings and turn them into a play for the National Theater. And uh, it's this very autobiographical piece of story theater, really, describing her interactions with not just the Beatles and Laurence Olivier at the National, but also leading figures in the both British and European and Black American movements at the time. And we're especially excited about this, not just because we have seen a dismaying lack of knowledge about the incredible wealth of Kennedy's legacy as a writer in the American theater, lack of knowledge and appreciation of that, that we're excited to shine more of a light on her here in our community. But also, this is a chance to work with some amazing Wisconsin artists, um, especially Dr. Baron Kelly, who is on faculty at the University of Wisconsin-Madison here, an unbelievably gifted director, actor, and academician, an educator. He will be directing this for us. And it's the return to forward of the marvelous Marty Goebel, who will be bringing Adrienne Kennedy to life. So that's kind of my overview of what excites me about this project.
Yeah, I just, I mean, Kennedy is, and a shout out to Roundhouse Theater, which has done a fabulous four-play Kennedy retrospective over this last year, and they've been really, really good. I mean, among the many places helping to bring her back, none of them, to my mind, have done or are doing this play. Um, Probably because they're just afraid of what whomever the designer is and how that person is going to run wild when they get to play with the swinging 60s and bring that to life. But it's a play and a person who really helped me sort of get at some of the heart of it without plot spoilers is our advisory company member, Jake Penner, who was just on our last podcast. And who said, in many ways, this is a play about cultural appropriation. and about the way in which the intersection of different cultural forces work. This aspiring Black playwright on the one hand, the Beatles on the other hand. What happens when you bring those two things together? And that's probably about as much as I can say, except to say that underneath the surface of this play, there is a lot of really deep stuff going on and presented in that remarkably deadpan way that Kennedy often has of putting material forward. I'm so excited for us to see this, especially with somebody like Marty.
Yeah. I love certainly there is some depth to this, but what excites me the most about this play is her painting of that scene, the 60s scene in London and the expats, and the National Theater is run by Laurence Olivier at the time, and he she is as excited to sit next to Laurence Olivier as I would be. And just the people she runs into, and her life there for a short period of time, but it's so clear. And the names will either be recognizable or people will want to run home and look them up. And that I think is really fun.
Yeah, and that's part of the fun that we're anticipating with this production is, first of all, an incredible opportunity for an enormous dramaturgical display in our lobby that really sets the scene and provides a lot of context. And actually, we're with Barron's help and other remarkable professors here at UW-Madison. There's been a lot of discussion of trying to put together a symposium on Adrienne Kennedy's work to run in conjunction with our production, and so really, really doing everything on our end to make sure that that comes to pass, because what a gift for all of us.
God, would that be exciting?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how we're kicking the year off. And what a return to the theater in celebrating this legendary playwright and music and art and yeah, all of it. So then in November, this is maybe closest, nearest and dearest to my heart, and probably yours as well, Mike's. We are bringing back the amateurs, and anybody who has been listening to multiple episodes
Squeal.
of this podcast knows that this is the production that was shut down by COVID. And we had started tech. We had one day of tech under our belts when we closed that down. And the themes of the play aside, it was a beautiful cast, a beautiful design team, an incredibly funny and heartfelt and engaging production that we were so excited to share. And closing any production would have been heartbreaking under the circumstances. Closing that one was especially so. And so when we had to move all of the sets and props and costumes out of the theater and put them into storage, that's what we did. We put them in storage and said, we are coming back for you. So in November of this year, we will get the gang back together. And, lest anyone has forgotten, it was a play about a group of theater makers outrunning and surviving a plague. So I think that the emotional resonance, not just for us, but for everybody in our audience and our community, I think is going to be just that much more heightened. And it talks about being a survivor and going through something traumatic and coming out the other side, and what could be better.
I'm most excited to see that we are bringing back, majority of the cast is coming back. And we did get so close, and I had seen runs and rehearsals of that play. They're going to be saying the same words they said a year and a half ago, and it's going to resonate differently. It's going to be a different play now than it would have been in March 2020. And I can't wait to see what changes, because it has to. I mean, the people that come on that stage to do amateurs again are fundamentally changed because of this year, and what will they bring to that will be different. And I am really excited to see that.
I'm going to be very surprised if this play by Jordan Harrison doesn't get picked up at a lot of theaters in the coming years. We can feel very prescient at recognizing early pre-pandemic how brilliant it was, but I think it's going to be seen a lot.
I mean, this is we're talking about a play within a play that is a mystery play. which started arising in England in the 1370s in direct response to and as a sort of punch in the gut to the whole idea of the Black Death 30 years earlier. And God, yes, Jen, for me, I mean, as the dramaturg for this production, I was literally, as you know, packing a bag, getting ready to come back to Madison for the rest of Tech when I got the news that we were going to have to shut down, and it was one of the most devastating things for me in the first few months of the pandemic. And honestly, for the time I've had to keep this under my hat that we were bringing it back, it has been in some of the worst moments in this last year, the great beacon for me of hope about what we can do and what theater is all about. It has truly been sustaining in the way that this play and its message are going to be sustaining for our audience. I can't wait to share it.
Yay. Um, so then in the early spring, we come back with our third production. And this I'm yeah, well, I'm going to say this. I'm excited about all of them, but this one has a special place in our hearts because it's going to be Forward's third world premiere production on our main stage. And this is a play that was featured in our Wisconsin Rights Development Program in the summer of 2020. And it's called The Medellinian Debate, and it's by Quan Barry, who is also we got a lot of UW Madison ties this year, as it turns out. But Quan is a professor of creative writing at the UW. She is a internationally acclaimed poet and novelist. Um, Fantastic writer and exploring the world now of playwriting. And she submitted her play Cold to that festival. We of course immediately recognized, wow, this is a writer who knows how to write. Um, and we just had such a phenomenal experience working with her on that reading. And then the reading itself, which was directed by Mark H., a adjunct professor at UW, relatively new to Madison. He directed it. We had this incredible cast made up of, Forward and Wisconsin favorites and some faces that were new to us, people like Gavin Lawrence and Olivia Dawson. It was just magical chemistry with that whole team. And so the idea of putting that on our main stage just kind of immediately dropped in as the right thing to do, to continue to develop this wonderful play about a Black surgeon and his wife and his daughter and the daughter's husband. And it takes place just post 9/11. There are issues of parenthood and family and bringing a Black child into a scary and uncertain world, and all told with this, you know, poetic sensibility that is Kwan's uh, gift. And I'm especially thrilled because not only are we going to be doing this play, but actually Quan Barry is going to be joining us for our entire season as a writer in residence. Really a chance for us to benefit from her input and insights, and also for her to get a full soup to nuts deep dive into how professional theater is put together, which I think I know she's been writing many more plays already since this one. And so I hope this is going to be a really mutually beneficial relationship and certainly a fun one. Um, and so, yeah, that's our early spring play, the Medellinian Debate.
I remember getting a text from you, Jen, for somehow you managed to find time to read a ridiculous number of books, even though you're also running a theater company and directing back-to-back plays, about Kwan's novel "She Weeps Each Time You're Born," and how excited you were by that book, as was I. And in that book, and in her more recent novel, "We Ride Upon Sticks," in her lovely poetry collection, which I've just been going through this morning, Water Puppets. This is a person who is constantly talking about breaking from one narrative of who and what you're supposed to be and trying to find a new way. And she does it so beautifully, as you said, with such poetic language. And to see her do it in this play and to watch her own sort of roving, questing spirit as she moves from poetry through novels and now into playwriting just makes me so excited that we're at the front end of this in a play which, as you said, is questioning what it means to be a family, questioning what it means to be Black, questioning what it means to move forward after something like 9/11 as we're moving forward after a pandemic. I mean, it's a perfect play in a season which has got so many plays where we're talking about how to write a new story, and break free of the old stories that had been going on before. It's going to be great.
How wonderful that I love our monologue festival and our new play festival. Wisconsin Writes introduces us to playwrights we may not know. And Medellinian Debate was one of those plays that we knew for sure we wanted to do for Wisconsin Writes. But then very quickly, we said, you know what, this would be really fantastic as a full blown production, as long as Quan is good with it and we bring back that unbelievable cast. We have done both. So that's really exciting. And the fact the writer in residence position, I am personally really excited to have her join us for this season. I think yeah, that'll make a difference in how we are approaching things. I can't wait for her insight into forward.
Yeah.
It's an exciting collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we close the season out in true forward fashion with a play that upends perhaps some of our expectations of what plays can do. This is a play that was written pre-COVID to be on the stage, but wound up having its world premiere during 2020 as Zoom theater. Got a lot of attention and was very acclaimed. And I saw it and started, immediately going, us, we want to do this. Please, can we have this play? And we got it. So I imagine it will be one of the earliest on stage productions that this script will have. It's by Sarah Gancher and it's called Russian Troll Farm, a workplace comedy. And the most succinct way that I can describe it is imagine an episode of The Office, except instead of this being a group of relative misfits working for Dunder Mifflin selling paper in Scranton, it's a group of misfits working for the Russian government in a bunker, creating fake news and Twitter threads and conspiracies during the 2016 election. This play explores different, theatrical forms. It is hilarious and gets at something that is obviously very present in all of our lives. And I'm quite inspired by it too, because it's a wonderful reminder that any forces like this in our world that can seem sinister and overwhelming, at the end of the day, tends to be something created by a bunch of hapless people showing up to work. And that makes it feel a lot easier to counteract because we are all hapless people who can show up to work and do our own part. And so I think it's an astonishing play. I think it is really fun. Designers are going to have a field day with it. And I'm pretty giddy that I get to direct this one.
Jen, fess up. The real reason you fell for this play was in the stage directions at the beginning, saying part 4 is the love child of Brecht and Annie Baker.
That had its appeal. Yeah.
This is what's so cool about this play is, and Gancher says this in her introduction. She said this isn't really or exclusively about trolls. This is about how we tell stories. And she exuberantly, in each of the parts of this thing, takes on a different style. The closest thing I can think of for those who saw it was what Eric Tucker did in putting Pericles through a blender at American Players Theater, where every single scene was set in a sort of different genre or different storytelling tradition. So it's a send up of all of these different ways in which we tell stories, from Shakespeare to Annie Baker, and added into it just so much humor. Making some really hard-hitting points, but so funny. And to Julie's earlier point, God, we all need to laugh right now. And if you walk out of this one and not laughing, you don't have a pulse.
It is, on paper though, when you describe this play about the misinformation that led to the candidacy of Trump, it sounds a little, but it's not. And I agree with you, Jen. The fact that we listen to like Russian hackers, which is actually in the news today, but it's people doing a job. And that does it makes it more accessible. It makes it more palatable. And the richness in these characters and the way that they are defined is what is hilarious to me. And it is going to be really fun to see it on stage, because it was one of the top 10 of 2020, according to the New York Times, as a virtual production. And it's just coming from screen to floor. We might be one of the first to make that transition. And that's exciting.
Yeah.
It'll be really fun. A great way to close out our lucky 13th season.
Yeah, and then of course, at the very tail end of it, we will have our next Wisconsin Writes Festival.
Right.
So who knows?
Maybe we'll find another incredible playwright.
Will come out of that.
New plays there, and I hadn't really thought about this as clearly as this conversation has allowed me to do, but a play that never gets done to open this season, a play that is brand spanking new and has almost not been done, The Amateurs, as our second play, a world premiere as our third play, and one of the, if not the first stage production as our fourth play. So, talk about trying to create and craft a new narrative and a new path forward that both looks back to the past, as each of these plays do. They're all wrestling with history and the way we've told stories in the past, while each of them, like Forward itself, sort of saying, hey, we're going to find a new way forward filled with hope and promise and, yes, laughter, and just a brand spanking new way to tell stories, which means we're also thinking about 13 in a different way, too. It is lucky year.
So before
Mike, thank you.
Close this down, I think I want to circle us back to our season tagline of Nevertheless, and what that means to each of us as we think about this year ahead. And I think about it first and foremost, probably from the lens of, I think, nevertheless, we persisted. We got through this year. We continued to create theater all through this COVID year. We honored every one of our contracts. We delivered full productions for every slot in our season to our subscribers, even though the format of each of them was a little bit of a, revolving door of new technologies. But we did all of those things. And nevertheless, here we are, ready to go back into live production with live audiences at the Overture Center in fall of 2021. That's my number one, nevertheless.
For me, and I'm thinking about this as a writer. Nevertheless is a great sort of transitional word when you're writing, and it's Janus faced. Part of it looks back. This is sort of what I was saying a minute ago.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it looks back. It looks to where you were, and it surveys that field, but it dialectically and dialogically insists that you're going to pivot and turn. And I know the word pivot has been overused, but damn it, it's appropriate here. So you're looking back at what was, you're respecting it, you're acknowledging it, you're realizing you got to deal with it, but you're saying, you know what? We're going to turn. We are going to do something different, and we are going to move forward, incorporating rather than denying the past, but moving forward and creating and forging a new path.
Mm.
It nevertheless is this wonderful conjunction word. It implies that there was something that happened that was hard before, and the effort it will make to be better than that, to survive that and succeed. And so it is, nevertheless, we had this pandemic. We are still here. We are still going to be doing art. And it can be filled in with however many people there are that see our season, hear us, and they can fill it in for themselves, which is exactly how it should be.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it for this episode of Theater Forward, a conversation about theater in Wisconsin, the Midwest, and America. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jen Ophoff-Gray.
I'm Julie Swenson.
And I'm Mike Fisher. Our podcast is produced by Scott Hayden, who, despite all of our gaffes and all of our mistakes, has nevertheless persisted in producing 55 episodes of this podcast. You can follow us thanks to him, or share your thoughts on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter at Theater Forward, as always with an ER. And we will persist in making that clear.
And if you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe to us wherever you might tune in. And please leave a review or send us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
We'd love to hear what nevertheless means to you in this year. But we are just so grateful to have you listening, and we will be back soon for another Theater Forward conversation.